Hi everyone, I'm Zach Reinhardt. Sorry I've been away for like a month. I've been busy and I did actually film a video, but it ended up being way too long and I didn't like it, so I didn't put it out. But whatever. I'm here to review today the new Luby Sparks album. Luby Sparks. It's self-titled. Luby Sparks is a five-piece indie rock, indie pop, guitar pop band with a little bit of shoegaze mixed in there for good measure. And this is their debut album on Space Shower Records. Luby Sparks has been kicking around for a little while in the indie scene, putting out some kind of spacey, shoegazy, guitar-based pop. They got signed on to a big old record label now, and they put out this, their first album. Now, this is an album that a lot of people that I know that follow Japanese indie music were looking forward to because they knew Luby Sparks from before they were signed onto Space Shower Records for this record release. And just generally, it seems everybody's pretty happy to see them succeeding with their music. But I had never really listened to them prior to this album. So when I saw everybody talking about, oh, Luby Sparks got signed, they've got this new record out, I picked it up, and I've literally been meaning to review it for like 2 or 3 months now, but we're a bit late. Everybody's kind of said what needs to be said about this album already, but here I am to throw in my 2 cents. And this is a pretty poppy, accessible indie rock record, as you might expect, that I struggle with, though there are definitely some real highlights. This album starts off with a short intro track called Intro, which just kind of introduces the sonic palette of the album, the soft female vocals, the kind of spacey, jangly guitars, the very big drum and bass. There's a very fat rhythm section all over this thing. And it just builds for about 1.5 minutes as it slides pretty smoothly into the second track, Sparks. Now, Sparks is a track that starts off a little rough for me, but cleans up by the end. The beginning doesn't have bass, and it's just this kind of jangly indie guitar and these soft female vocals and these drums that are really loud in the mix. And then in the distance, there's this really fuzzy, kind of noisy guitar that seems to be doing something completely unrelated to what the other instruments are doing. And it's a rocky start, but once the main groove kicks in for the verse and the bass comes in, everything feels a lot more grounded and it feels a lot more solidified. And even though the kind of fuzzy, noisy guitar still feels like it's kind of playing third wheel to all the other instruments, the song shapes up pretty nicely into a pretty decent little indie rock tune. I like how heavy things get on the chorus. It really sets a tone for this album to be poppy and accessible, but not afraid to toy with some kind of noisy and some kind of grittier elements. And that certainly seems to be a statement that this song is trying to make, especially as the outro is this noisy, echoey feedback stuff that kind of fades out into a shot of noisy feedback that is the intro of the third track, Thursday. Unfortunately, however, Thursday turns out to be a pretty middle-of-the-road, fairly forgettable indie rock track. It's about as dime a dozen Japanese indie pop as it comes. The kind of shoegazy, noisy edge that they had in Sparks is gone here in favor of more traditional, typical indie rock sounds. And the verses are pretty forgettable. They really just serve as a vehicle to get from one chorus to the next. And the choruses aren't particularly spectacular either. And there are a few songs like this where I'm really just kind of bored. It's typical indie rock and it's alright. It makes for decent background noise, I guess. But for active listening, it's just such an oversaturated sound right now in the kind of Japanese indie scene, and they aren't really doing anything particularly spectacular or interesting with it when they don't incorporate this kind of noisier, darker edge. Tracks like Still Awake and The Short-Lived Girl are especially heinous offenders in this department. But when they do get a little bit rawer and a little bit more intense and play with this kind of noisiness a little bit more, I think the results are pretty good. The song Tangerine is a really good example of this. It takes what the opening track Sparks was doing and just kind of ups the quality of it. The noisiness and kind of fuzzy, distorted guitars feel a lot more integrated into the song on this track, and it also has some of the better songwriting. The verse is solid, I like the chorus a lot, and the bridge has a really great kind of instrumental jam going on that I enjoy a lot, and I love the squealy lead guitar that plays at the end of the song to play it out. The song Farewell Lily is another one of my favorite tracks. It starts just immediately with this fast, upbeat, kind of pop-punky energy. There's a kind of distorted, fuzzy tone to the guitars, but they're played with this really clean, clear precision. And the drums on this track are really good. I like the energy and the kind of shocking change of pace that this song brings to the album, and it's one of my favorite tracks for sure. I also really like the track directly after that, Teenage Squash. The song starts with these clean, clear guitar arpeggios that are then accompanied by this just nasty, slow groove with a really fat bass tone and some just slow, methodical drums. It's one of those grooves that makes you just want to like scrunch up your nose and bob your head to it. And the song juxtaposes that against a chorus which is loud and fast and upbeat and full of energy and really in your face. And they just kind of abruptly transition between these two parts in a way that I think juxtaposes them really well. And they both really shine against each other. There's also a nice noisy guitar solo and some good use of kind of feedback and noisy texture towards the end of the track. However, and I know I'm stepping away from my predictable wheelhouse a little bit, but the noisy tracks aren't all my favorite ones. I also quite like the kind of almost indie folk song Life of Misery. This song has some really pretty, clean guitars and some acoustic guitar playing as well. It has this really fun, upbeat, like instrumental interlude that comes in after the first chorus and then is used later to integrate into the chorus towards the end of the song. And I think that's a really nice little touch of songwriting. And overall, this song just has some of the catchiest, most fun melodies on the whole album. And then we come to the closer on the album. The longest song by far, and one of the ones I'm most mixed on. It's called Before You Dive, and it starts out with this slow bass intro that's then accompanied by these cavernous kind of reverby vocals. The song builds into just this huge reverby, spacious groove that is kind of spacey and shoegazy, but without any real like body to it. It feels very expansive and large, but kind of thin and weak. However, that changes quite a bit on the chorus when things pick up and just get a lot louder and just bring a bit more meat into the track. I also like the bridge quite a bit, and I love the lead guitar tone on this song. It's pretty gnarly, if I'm allowed to use that word in 2018. But yeah, so this is an album I'm pretty mixed on. There's a lot of things I like about this album. There's a lot of good songwriting on here. There's a lot of great guitar tone on a lot of the tracks. But there's also several songs, like more than a third of the track listing, that I find to be kind of tiresome and a little bit boring for me. Because of all the tracks I do like on here, I kind of want to give it a 7, but I can't quite justify it when there are like a solid 4 tracks that I find to be pretty underwhelming. So I think I'm going to go with a 6.5 on this album. If you're looking for some new indie rock to follow up your listening of the really great new Falsettos record, this is a solid release. And I enjoyed my time with it well enough, and it's definitely a good album to like put in the background when you're hanging out with your hipster friends. Um, but I don't particularly find it to be incredible, and I don't think I'm going to be returning to it much. But it was a solid listen, and that's me. This was the new Luby Sparks album. It is self-titled, and I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks for another review. Peace.